Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Ted Dixon, CEO and co-founder of IncResearch.ca, Canada's first online financial news and research service, providing insider news and knowledge to investors. His website, CanadianInsider.com, home of the Canadian Insider Club. Welcome back to the show, Ted.
Jim, thanks for having me back, and thanks to everyone tuning in.
Ted, our eyes are on silver after today's bond market madness. What's the story there?
Well, inflation surprised most people today in the U.S., coming in at 5.4%. Then that's a big beat off of a 4.9 expectation. So one would think, oh, well, inflation's here, everybody better sell bonds. Well, yeah, maybe for a few seconds, but then bonds rallied because there are competing narratives in the market, basically, and it goes something like this. There's basically two narratives in favor of buying bonds and because deflation's coming, and one narrative that's in favor of inflation. So the deflation narrative, the buy bonds, no matter what narratives, they kind of go like this. The first one is that inflation is transitory. So, yeah, we see it now, 5.4%, but that's probably peak. You know, all these supply chains are going to fix themselves. Most people, you know, go out and have a few meals, and they're going to, you know, settle down, and you know, once they go and visit their, you know, their in-laws across the country, you know, then that, you know, then all the air travel will settle back down, and everything will return to normal. And, you know, then the usual forces of demographics, debt overhang, you know, will come into play, and we'll be back to deflation, so buy bonds no matter what. Okay, so that's the first narrative. The other narrative is that, well, maybe inflation is not transitory right now, but the Fed will come in and will basically tighten monetary policy and throw us into a recession, and therefore you better buy bonds because the Fed, you know, if it's not transitory, the Fed's going to wreck everything anyways. So that's a popular narrative that's also in the market. So you buy bonds and you buy bond proxies such as tech stocks, and you wouldn't want to touch commodities on that narrative because, you know, even though the Fed, you know, is making a mistake, you know, we're going to head into a deflation, and you wouldn't want to be touching copper or silver, any of those industrial commodities under that scenario. The competing scenario is, and this is the one that I'm kind of biased towards, well, we will see, is that it's not transitory, and the Fed will not come in and hammer inflation like Paul Volcker did back in 1980, 79, 80, 81, that period. Instead, the Fed will drag its feet, and the Fed will purposely drag its feet with, you know, its first tool will be job owning, and then if they really have to, they will get around to tapering. So we've had the first two narratives kind of in control the last month or so, two or 3 months. You know, the transitory or the Fed is going to clobber the economy narratives. Now, what's been happening to silver? Now let's bring this back to silver. Well, silver has been just treading water for the last few months, as I'm sure most of your listeners know. And so that's been keeping a lid on the gold-silver ratio, because what the gold-silver ratio, of course, is the price of gold divided by the price of silver. So if the gold-silver ratio is going up, that means silver is outperforming gold. People aren't buying silver, and you would expect them to buy silver if inflation expectations were rising, because inflation is more industrial-oriented, more sensitive to commodities. It's also, you know, it's cheaper than gold, so it's cheaper for people to go and grab, and you might have an expectation that silver's got more upside in an inflationary environment. If silver's not going up, then you could be more concerned about deflation. You could buy gold. So we're waiting to see if the gold-silver ratio will break down, which would be inflation and silver positive, or whether it's going to break higher, which would be deflation and likely gold positive. And, silver would kind of probably tag along for the ride a little bit, but you wouldn't get a lot of juice, as much juice out of silver as you would gold. Okay, so it's been stuck in this range, and along with silver, which leads me to think that the deflation camp has thrown the kitchen sink at silver. Okay, we are all aware by now that deflation, that apparently demographics, are terrible for silver and inflation and commodities. Apparently, we've all been told for many, many months that there's a debt overhang. We've all, if we don't know that the world is awash in debt, then we've been, tuning into the wrong channel. These are well known. Okay, so silver has had every opportunity to collapse. It has not collapsed. Okay, it is kind of hung in there in face of all this. So the question is, what's next for silver? That's why I'm keeping an eye on it, and I think we are near a point of decision where silver is likely, and I don't know when, but it's, I don't know how long it's going to keep hanging around here, but, in this sort of $25, $26 range. I'm not a technical analyst. But, these competing forces are not sustainable for very much longer in the market, so we will see. But my sense is that because silver has not capitulated any further, that it's got some relative strength here, or some underlying strength. I don't want to say relative strength, underlying strength. And our bias is towards an uptick in silver. And, we say that in part because our precious metals insider indicator is behaving very well. And that's an indicator that looks at, silver miners and those types of miners, other types of precious metal miners for the most part. So that's looking pretty well, pretty good. Not infallible. So I want to be modest in my outlook here. The conviction level is, yes, positive towards silver and the inflation trade still, but it's not a slam dunk. However, just given the forces at work, the inflationary forces seem to have some momentum. We now have China easing policy, which for months now I've been hearing about the China credit impulse is collapsing. Okay, what is that, Ted? Well, I'm not going to say what sites, but there's one site in particular that harps on about this all the time. It's a doom and gloom, perpetual doom and gloom site. And yes, the credit has been slowing in China. Yes, but this is not we know this. However, now credit is starting to loosen in China. So what does that suggest? To me, it suggests that maybe it's time to get a little bit more constructive on those commodities which would be supportive by China having looser monetary policy. So we shall see. We shall see how silver is going to go here. I haven't been a big silver bull for the last few months, a while. People have been following this broadcast will know, precious metals were not my big focus, heading into the Biden administration. Now things are starting to get interesting. We're getting to this point where, they've got some inflationary forces, they've got to do more stimulus, and we will see what happens here. But, if you check out our latest Canadian Insider Insights on CanadianInsider.com, you will see a nice chart of U.S. consumer credit starting to pick up. So, I don't want to get too anchored in the deflation narrative that's out there. We've heard a lot about it, but let's just see what happens. Look, they could be right. Again, one must be modest in one's outlook here. There's so many different things going on. The Fed could make a policy mistake. It's quite possible. They've done it before. They will probably do it again. Will Jerome Powell tomorrow at Congress risk having a taper tantrum. And what's that? Back in 2013, Bernanke went to Congress and started talking about cutting back bond buying by the Fed, and then, the markets reacted very negatively. I think Jerome Powell is aware of that episode. He's a fairly smart cookie. I think he's aware of that. So I believe a lot of the deflation crowd is betting on a very hawkish Federal Reserve to turn up the hawkish volume. We'll see. I think that it's more likely they're going to try and straddle the line here. All talk, no action for as long as they possibly can. Eventually, that easy money will reinforce the commodities trade and the inflation trade, but it's not going to be smooth. It's not going to be pretty, but welcome to the markets. We just had today the 10-year yield, Jim. It moved around in a over 6 basis point move. Like, come on, I hear Elizabeth Warren, throwing a tantrum about Bitcoin volatility. Well, what about her bond market? What kind of the bond market's been around for hundreds of years per se, in all its forms. But the U.S. bond market has been around for decades and decades. Bitcoin's been around for 10 years. Of course, it's an emerging asset. It's going to be volatile. But when you see those kinds of events in the bond market, what is that telling you? Where's all the outrage about that? Of course, there's no outrage about that because governments want to print money, more and more of it, and they want you to believe that that's all fine, that the Fed has your back and nothing could possibly go wrong. And but look over there, look at that evil Bitcoin, used by terrorists and money launderers. That's the real problem. Well, that's a nice narrative if you can get away with it. That's another story, but we'll see how Jerome Powell behaves tomorrow, and we'll see how the bond market reacts to what he has to say.
We'll have more with Ted Dixon right after this.
Engineer Gold Mines is focused on the exploration and development of the historic high-grade Engineer Gold Mine situated 32 kilometers southwest of Atlin, British Columbia. Engineer Gold Mines is fully permitted for surface and underground exploration with the drill program now underway. Engineer Gold Mines Limited trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol EAU. For more information, please visit us at engineergoldmines.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Ted Dixon. There's a line here that you sent me. BC is taking a different path on crypto regulation. What is it?
Well, we talked about this last show where Binance announced it was going to pull out of Ontario. And, that did have me thinking, why would they just pull out of Ontario? Why wouldn't they just pull out of Canada? And so I did a bit more digging, and, this is all just sort of connecting dots on my part, or speculation, whatever you want to call it. But a few weeks, or not even, after the Canadian Securities Administrators put out their notice, March 29, that cryptocurrencies would have to, wherever they were in the world, exchanges would have to register in Canada, the BC Securities Commission sent out a clarification, which in itself is unusual. And in that clarification, it was interesting what they said. I'll just read part of it. The BC Securities Commission remains flexible and will consider a range of potential regulatory solutions to find an appropriate solution for each platform, so each exchange that's supposed to come and register in Canada. One option is pursuing membership with IROC. Okay, let me just stop right there. So IROC is the self-regulatory body that oversees the Toronto Stock Exchange, the the TSX Venture, alternative platforms. They oversee it. It's a non-government body. It's a non-profit body, but it's basically the entity that the Ontario Securities Commission has granted that power to. Okay, and it's got a board and with industry reps and the like on it. Okay, problem with IROC a problem, or the reality with IROC is that it's been designed to regulate the Toronto Stock Exchange, the TSX Venture Exchange. I mean, these are centralized stock exchanges. Most cryptocurrency exchanges are not centralized. You can have a hybrid model like Binance, but you're trying to fit, a square peg into a round hole on that, in my opinion. Now, maybe the BC Securities Commission has thought about that and has come to the same conclusion, because they go on to say the BC Securities Commission will also consider other regulatory arrangements where warranted, such as tailored exemptive relief that do not require IROC membership. Now, that is a big deal potentially, because it opens the door for cryptocurrency exchanges, if they can show that BC is their primary area of operations, that they can register here and may not, now this is all kind of what ifs now, may not need to go into IROC, and maybe there would be another body that would form. This is all evolving stuff. This is emerging stuff. There's no playbook. The regulators are making up the playbook as they go, as they have to. So they've opened up an opportunity, the BC Securities Commission, for cryptocurrency exchanges globally to register here, provided BC is like their major center of activity. So it's interesting that Binance shut out Ontario users, because in theory, I would argue that they can now say that BC is their main area if they no longer have Ontario customers. They could also, they could also look at Quebec, I guess, or whatever. They may not even want to register in Canada. I have no idea. I've not spoken to Binance. I do not. I use them, and it's not an endorsement. I use them, but I don't talk to them. And I'm sure they don't. They have better things to do than talk to me. So, but it will be interesting though if other exchanges use this potential exemption from IROC to set up in British Columbia, and so this could open up an opportunity for BC to once again become an exchange hub. We lost it with the Vancouver Stock Exchange when it merged with the CDNX, and then it, got folded into the TSX Venture Exchange, and now, it's part of the Toronto Stock Exchange group, and, where it's actually located, I'm not even sure. I think it's in Calgary per se, but it's still, I believe, regulated by the OSC. So, for all intents and purposes, there's no exchange in Vancouver that I'm aware of. So, that could change. It would be, crypto registered exchanges. Okay. So, crypto could could reinvigorate that whole industry in Vancouver. We will have to see. But, the march for crypto, it's taken a big hit here, but the adoption case, I believe, is still moving forward, Jim. And by the way, if you're interested in that, piece I was talking about on the BC Securities Commission, you can get that also in our insights. It was from the July 8th insights, and so where I quote the piece. Not everyone, of course, wants to get into those kind of weeds, but I can also say that we put the ability for people to join the Canadian Insider Club paying in Litecoin. So that's also described on our subscribe pages and on that on the July 8th insights, the reason why. But yeah, for one Litecoin now, running that, for the next few months, and we'll reassess, you can join the Canadian Insider Club, where if you want to pay by credit card, you can still do that, but the price is significantly higher right now because of the way the Litecoin price is. So, we're taking our first baby steps into accepting crypto, and I go into the whole rationale of the piece if you're interested. But yes, you can now join the Canadian Insider Club with Litecoin. I'm always, I'm available on Twitter. Inc Research is available on Twitter if you have any questions, on that, for those who may be a bit nervous about doing it or haven't done it before. But there's a lot of people who have, and send cryptocurrency around all the time. So, we're opening up that opportunity. It's a significant savings from our regular prices. And, we're going to take it from there. It's our first step, but, we're, pretty committed to trying to move down the path of innovation in terms of how people can, pay for goods and services, and cutting out third parties that extract a lot, even though you may not see it as a consumer from, you swipe your card, and, you may be paying a fee if you have a premium card, but there's all sorts of embedded costs that have to get paid somewhere, and everyone pays it. But those who have been enjoying the benefits of that have really been, MasterCard and Visa shareholders who have done very well over the past, half decade or so. But I talk about that also in the insights from July the 8th as well.
On the educational front, did insiders buy the crude oil dip?
Jim, these kind of dips are a great time to put insider signals and activity at work. And we've been looking, right away, as soon as crude oil headed back towards $70, we thought, what are the insiders doing? Are they buying? Are they sitting by the sidelines, waiting and seeing? And already we've been able to report on a couple of, decent-sized companies that have had some insider buying. We reported on one on Monday. We're going to report on one again on Wednesday around 7 o'clock on Twitter. I do a preview of our reports, our morning reports. So even if you're not a subscriber, if you tune in, if you follow us at Inc. Research, you can watch our live preview and find out what we're talking about. Sometimes we leave them up on Twitter. Sometimes we take them down for our paying subscribers only, but because we replay them on our Inc. Ultra Money for our paying subscribers. But yeah, if you tune in around 7 o'clock to 7:30, we do an overview of what's coming up in the daily Inc. Morning report, and tomorrow we have more buying in the oil patch.
Ted, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Jim, thanks for having me back.
My guest has been Ted Dixon, CEO and co-founder of IncResearch.ca, his website, CanadianInsider.com. Find him on Twitter at Inc. Research. If you have any questions for Ted or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@HowStreet.com. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Find us on Twitter at HowStreet. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.